Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a city that's 4,500 years old, an absolute masterpiece of ancient engineering. But the biggest thing it left behind? It's a message that even now, we just can't read.
And that right there, that's the heart of the mystery. It's called the Indus script. You find it carved onto thousands of different artifacts, basically a language frozen in time. And get this, after 100 years of trying, nobody, and I mean nobody, on Earth can read it.
So this mysterious script, it's really our only way in. It's our best shot at understanding the people who built one of the most advanced societies of the ancient world.
And you know, in this one city, Dholavira, archaeologists stumbled upon the strangest example of all. This wasn't some little stamp on a personal seal. No, this was a huge signboard with 10 big characters. It was obviously meant for everyone to see. But what on earth did it say? Was it the name of the city, a religious rule? We just have no idea.
So that begs the question, right? What kind of city creates a puzzle like this? To really get a handle on Dholavira, we've got to zoom out and see where it fits into the bigger picture of the ancient world.
Okay, so Dholavira wasn't just some tiny town in the middle of nowhere. Not at all. It was a major city, a real hub in the massive Indus Valley Civilization. You might also hear it called the Harappan Civilization. We're talking about a culture that was right up there with ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia, with other huge cities like Mohenjo-daro and Harappa. And where they chose to build it? Absolutely brilliant. They set up shop on an island right in the Rann of Kutch, which is this huge salt marsh. Why there? Well, it gave them easy access to all kinds of marine resources. But even more important, it put them in the perfect spot to become a hub for sea trade, a gateway to the Arabian Sea. I mean, that location was the engine that powered the city for more than 1,500 years.
But the real genius of Dholavira, it's all in the design. Seriously, this wasn't just a collection of buildings. It was a masterpiece of urban planning, way ahead of its time.
Look at how they laid it out. The city was super organized, split into 3 clear parts, which tells you a lot about their society. Right at the top, you've got the castle, this heavily fortified citadel, probably where the rulers lived. Then, you step down to the middle town, which was also walled off, for officials and merchants. And finally, you have the big lower town, where pretty much everyone else lived and worked.
And this thing for order, it goes right down to the city's measurements. Nothing was left to chance. Archaeologists figured out that the dimensions are all based on exact mathematical ratios. The castle is a perfect 4x5. The stadium, a 1x6. I mean, that's not an accident. This was all planned with some serious geometric precision. We're talking a level of sophistication that was just revolutionary for that era.
Now, pulling this off on a perfectly flat piece of land would be impressive, right? But the builders of Dholavira, they did it on a really tough, hilly landscape. There's a 13-meter, that's about 40 feet, drop in elevation from one side of the city to the other. So to take those perfect mathematical ratios and actually build them on that kind of ground, that's just an incredible feat of engineering, truly.
So Dholavira wasn't just a pretty place to live. It was a beehive of activity, a real center for industry, and some seriously high-end craftsmanship.
Actually, archaeologists have given it this cool nickname, the Sheffield of the East. They're comparing it to that famous industrial city in England. That's because Dholavira was an ancient powerhouse, especially when it came to working with stone and metal. It was one of the most important manufacturing hubs of its entire era.
Just imagine their workshops, taking these raw chunks of stone, steatite, and turning them into thousands of these amazingly detailed seals. Every single one is like a tiny work of art, and a piece of communication, too, even if we have no clue what the writing on them actually says.
And they didn't stop at seals. Their artisans were absolute masters at making beads. I mean, look at this. This one single find had over 800 beads in it. And they were made from all these precious materials that had to be brought in from all over the place. We're talking carnelian, jasper, agate, and that classic deep blue lapis lazuli.
You can also see how skilled they were by looking at their metalwork. They were expertly making all sorts of things out of copper. Sharp arrowheads for hunting or for fighting, strong tools, and even things like razors for personal grooming. It just shows they really knew what they were doing with metal.
Okay, so you've got all these amazing high-tech goods, but they weren't just making them for themselves. Oh no, Dholavira was a major player on the world stage. It was a key hub in a huge, ancient global trade network.
And this is where that location we talked about becomes its superpower. They could pull raw materials like steatite from trade routes overland, and then, using their port, they'd ship all the finished products out across the Arabian Sea to markets far, far away.
And we're talking about a really busy network here. There's actual evidence that connects Meluhha, which is what people in Mesopotamia called the Indus Valley, with places like Magan in Oman, Dilmun in the Gulf, and yeah, all the way to Mesopotamia itself. Think about that. This was basically globalization, but 4,000 years ago.
But after all those centuries of growth, incredible precision, and wealth, the final chapter of Dholavira's story is also its biggest mystery. What in the world happened to this amazing city?
We can actually track the city's life through 7 different stages. It starts out small, then booms into this huge, thriving metropolis. But then, around stage 5, things start to go downhill. That careful planning and maintenance, it starts to slip. For a while, a smaller, different kind of settlement pops up, but eventually, the city just empties out completely and is abandoned forever.
You can just imagine it. The great reservoirs drying up, the noisy workshops falling silent, and somewhere in there, the very last person who could read that unique, beautiful script just walked away. When Dholavira faded, its voice was completely lost.
And that brings us right back to where we started, the ruins. They tell us a lot about how these people lived. We can see how they built things, how they traded, how they flourished. But until we can crack their language, we'll never really know why. What stories, what beliefs, what incredible histories are still locked up inside those symbols, just waiting for someone, someday, to finally read them.